Welcome back, everybody. Today we will finish our conversation about factor markets by looking at how to identify the cost minimizing combination of factors of production. How do we figure out the right amount of land, labor, and capital to employ to keep our costs at a minimum and maximize our profit? First, we want to identify that factors can be either substitutes or complements. So factors of production can be substitutes. You can have an ATM or a bank teller. You either have capital, machinery to deal with the banking needs of your customers, or you can have a human being working behind a desk. You can have American computer programmers, or you can have Japanese programmers. Factors can also be complements to each other or complementary. Doctors and x-ray machines go together. You have the human capital, the labor of a doctor, paired with the physical capital of the x-ray machine. Or you could have pilots, labor, and 747s, physical capital. Either way, they would be complementary in nature. The reality is that in the real world, we're going to need to have a combination of these different factors of production. We're not going to just hire labor or just have physical machinery, physical capital. We're going to have a combination of workers and capital and land resources in order to produce the goods and services that we're going to sell in the product market. The challenge then for us is to figure out how to create a combination of these factors of production that costs me the least amount to produce the amount of goods and services that are being demanded by the market. The way to solve that problem is to go back to something we did earlier, which was utility maximization, where we were trying to decide how many snacks and drinks to purchase given a budget constraint. In this case, how many snacks and drinks should I buy if I have a $20 budget? And if you recall, we identified that the way to do this was to find the marginal utility per dollar spent for both of these goods and continue to buy goods as long as they had a greater marginal utility per dollar spent than the alternative, and keep going until the marginal utility per dollar spent was equal between the two goods and that I had spent all of my money. So the rule was to go until marginal utility per dollar spent on good X was equal to the marginal utility per dollar spent on good Y. And we would just go back and forth. Do I buy a snack first or do I buy a drink first? In this case, I would buy a drink first because 6 utils per dollar is better than 3.75. Then do I buy the second drink or do I buy the first snack? Again, I'd buy a drink. 4.5 utils per dollar is better than 3.75. Do I buy a third drink or a first snack? Third drink makes sense because 4 utils per dollar is better than 3.75. Do I buy the fourth drink or the first snack? Now I buy my first snack because 3.75 is better than 3.5. And I keep doing that until I came to the optimal combination. In this case, it was 2 snacks and 6 drinks would give me the most utility given the budget constraint that I faced. The solution to how to get the cost minimizing combination of inputs or combination of factors of production has a similar process. When trying to decide whether to hire the next unit of labor or the next unit of capital, I will look to see which of the two has the greater marginal benefit per dollar spent. The way we define marginal benefit here is the marginal product. So which of these two factors of production leads to the greatest marginal product per dollar spent, which will get me the most additional units of production for the least cost. And so whichever option has the greatest marginal product per dollar spent, I will employ until the marginal product per dollar spent on labor is equal to the marginal product per dollar spent on capital or land, and that I have produced enough of the goods to meet market demand. So we can look at an example. If I need to produce 144 items that sell for 50 cents a piece, and I have a wage rate of $1 per worker, or $2 is the rental rate for capital, I'm trying to balance these two. So the question is, what would be the optimal combination of labor and capital to employ given this situation? solve this problem, I would need to calculate in a new column the marginal product per dollar spent for labor and the marginal product per dollar spent on capital. So it might look something like this. So then I have to decide, do I hire my first worker or do I hire my first unit of capital? I get 20 units per dollar spent on labor. I only get 10 units per dollar spent on capital, so I'll hire my first labor. Then, do I hire my second worker or my first unit of capital? I see the marginal product per dollar for the second unit of labor is 16. That's greater than 10, so I'll hire another worker. Should I hire a third worker? Yes, 12 is greater than 10, so I still haven't hired capital yet. I have 3 labor, 0 capital. Is it the fourth unit of labor or the first unit of capital? Here, the marginal product per dollar spent are equal, so I'll go ahead and hire both. But them being equal is not enough because I need to produce 144 items. So right now, I've got 10 plus 12 plus 16 plus 20 produced by labor, and I've got 20 produced by capital. That means I've only produced 78 items. I've added all the marginal products together. That tells me a total of 78 units produced. I need 144. So while the marginal product per dollar spent is equal, I'm not done yet. Should I hire the fifth worker or the second capital? Well, 9 is bigger than 8, so I'll hire a second capital. Fifth worker or third capital, they're the same, 8 and 8. I'll go ahead and hire both. And again, I'll stop. Yes, marginal product per dollar spent is the same, but have I produced 144 items? If you add up the marginal products for the first 5 workers and the first 3 units of capital, you'll find we still don't have the total amount needed. So I'm going to continue. Should I hire the 6th laborer or the 4th unit of capital? 6 for capital is better than 4. And then I go down to 6 labor and 5 capital. They both have the same marginal product per dollar spent. Again, they're equal. If I add up all the marginal products for the first 6 units of labor, and I add up all the marginal products for the first 5 units of capital, I will get that 144 items that I need. There is no other combination of labor and capital that will produce 144 units that will be less expensive than this combination. I will end up spending more total dollars to employ capital and labor if I do any other combination than 6 workers and 5 units of capital. Another way a question might be phrased would be to say that you're currently employing both labor and capital, and that the last unit of labor has a marginal product of 15 units. The last unit of capital has a marginal product of 40. If the price of labor is $3 per unit and the price of capital is 10, what should you do to use the cost minimizing combination of factors? First off, are you using the cost minimizing combination? And if not, what should you do? So the way to solve this would be to keep in mind, again, we want the marginal product per dollar spent to be equal. So the marginal product of labor divided by the wage should equal the marginal product of capital divided by rental rate if we are using the cost minimizing combination. When we plug in the numbers that we've been given, it turns out that the marginal product per dollar spent for labor is greater than the marginal product per dollar spent for capital. So that indicates to me the best thing I can do is to employ more labor because I'm receiving 5 units per dollar spent with labor, only 4 for capital. As I employ more labor, the marginal product due to diminishing marginal returns should get smaller. So that ratio should go from 5 to 4 point something and continue to get smaller as I employ more labor. And as I employ more labor, I will employ less capital. And as I employ less capital, the marginal product of each previous unit of capital will be higher, so that will cause that ratio to rise. So as I'm employing more labor and less capital, we'll see these numbers begin to equalize, and once they are equal, then I know I have employed the appropriate number of both labor and capital to meet my market demand and keep my prices or costs as low as possible. That's it for factor markets. Next time we meet, we will talk about market failure, and I will see you then.